I think memes are here to stay in the sense of like, we will always enjoy memes. There will always be some money to be made on memes. And I think that stays around, right? I think AI is similar in the sense that AI is here to stay, and it's probably going to change the future of everything, not just of, gaming or crypto. It is just what within AI that will stick around the longest. Seeing people like the CEO of NVIDIA come out and talk about AI agents and the future of it and how it's going to be a huge market in the future gives me more conviction in the fact that it is here to stay.
Hello everybody and welcome to the first press play in a new video format, and we are joined by a fantastic guest that we have had on prior press plays, Omar, CEO of Games. Omar, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on this first episode of the rebranded press play. I'm excited to see where this goes or how it ends up coming out in video.
Hopefully everybody loves to hear our voice as well as getting to see us as well. So Omar, if someone has stumbled into this and somehow has no idea who you are you within the space at the moment?
Yeah, so CEO of Games.gg, a Web3 gaming platform that now has just over 1 million users, something like 500 plus different games across, I want to say 30 plus chains at this point. We've been in the space for quite some time. I think it's coming to our 3rd year anniversary at any point now. And we just wanted to kind of fill a gap that we recognized not too long ago, that people just didn't have that source, that trusted friend of, what an IGN or a Kotaku or maybe even just a friend normally would fill in the gaming space. And we wanted to do that in the Web3 gaming space. And that's why we launched Games.gg.
Yeah, fantastic. And as a member of the team, this is a great insight that I can actually share with and be like, yeah, I feel like that is what we are achieving in the space. But that's who you are now. When you were growing up, is this the kind of thing you envisioned yourself doing, or what type of person were you growing up? Did it always seem like you're going to lead into this kind of thing, or is this something kind of out of the blue from where you thought you were going?
Gaming for sure. Web3 gaming, obviously I wouldn't say so, but yeah, I think I've always played video games all my life growing up. I didn't really imagine a world where I could turn that into a career. I think it was always clear to me that like you had to be really good at a video game to kind of be competitive to then go to like esports, and that was the only way to really make money out of gaming, or you just become a really entertaining content creator. And that was a path that I actually did try to go down on at some point on TikTok and grow my own socials and so on. But I think from a professional standpoint, I was always really passionate about storytelling, regardless of what that kind of entailed. So my first job out of college was at L'Oreal, which was really boring because the story I was telling wasn't about a product I cared about, because it was cosmetics, but it still taught me a lot of stuff. And then I slowly started venturing into things that were a bit more fun to tell stories about. So Dubai tourism gave me a lot of opportunities to like talk about the city and the country that I grew up in and love. And then I got into gaming through esports at some point, and that was primarily me telling a story that I liked a little bit more, which was kind of like the MENA region, what it means, to be someone in this region playing video games competitively, highlighting some of the top games. So we used to work with like Rainbow Six and Fortnite and FIFA and League of Legends. So I think that was a story that I enjoyed a lot more. And that kind of trickled down to me making my way to Web3 just out of curiosity. And then, one thing led to another, and today here we are. I think the vision's always been the same. If you kind of look back at empowering gamers, really, because if you look at what we did with esports, it was always about empowering gamers in the region to be able to like be seen and appreciated and have their own stage and compete at their own kind of stadiums with spotlights and so on. Today it's a bit more about like the day-to-day gamer, so you don't have to be like a competitive esports player, but you could just be any gamer, and maybe it's empowering you to make money, maybe it's empowering you to build a personality, a persona, a brand, or maybe it's just empowering you to, have fun and own your own assets. So yeah, I think there's consistencies, but there's definitely like speed bumps and ebbs and flows along the way.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like this is something you would have liked to get into from a youth. I believe I'm 10 years older than you. And the concept of doing gaming professionally when I was younger was something that was, you're either incredibly good as being a developer or you are the top tier players. That was maybe the roles you could only get into. And now the way that our space is created, it does give more opportunities to let other people come in as well. Some stuff I've seen from you previously is that you have done a TED Talk as well, right? So you've done stuff where you go out and you talk in front of people when you've been representing stuff prior to Web3. Do you think that kind of gave you the edge into coming the position within the industry you are now, rather than someone that is just participating in the industry? You became someone that was kind of like built something to help lead others come into the space.
I mean, I've never been stage shy, I'd say. And I think I told you earlier, like I really just enjoy storytelling. So I think when I did that TED Talk, it was just primarily about trying to maybe inspire like one person to do the same thing that I did. I actually did it back in my own high school, so it felt even more special. But it was one of those things where it was just like I sat in that chair. I was just like you, and I also thought I had to study and get a medical degree, or become an engineer or whatever to be successful in life, or to have a career, to make a certain amount of money. And I also found out that that's not how the world works. And so here I am to tell you how this is how the world works. And I think the whole topic was about failure and having that willingness to risk failure. It does lead to you learning a bit quicker. So I mean, yeah, to your initial question, maybe I'd argue potentially, like, it's not that I got into the space and I was like, I want to become the leader of the space. It was more so like I recognized that there was a gap, and that I, as a user, would love to fill that gap, or have someone fill that gap for me. And then it was one of those things where it's like, if not us, then who? So let's just do it ourselves. And then, I mean, I'm lucky to have the people around me today that have, gotten us this far, whether it's the team or the community or whoever stood by us from the beginning. I think that's what puts us in that position. And I think also the way we played our cards is probably why we ended up in this position, like saying no to certain things, grinding through a certain period of the market when no one is really interested. Like, people don't remember now because like Web3 gaming is this like common knowledge thing. But once upon a time, no one was reading our news pieces, no one was looking at our website, like we had no clicks, there was nothing, right? So sticking to your kind of instincts and guts and doing that in a bear market, or when the industry's too young, or whatever, I think that's what leads to you then becoming a leader in like a better condition, not just oh, you have experience in the past. I think it does definitely help, because you're a bit more comfortable, right? But I think there's other factors as well.
Yeah, I think you're completely right there. And the point I want to pick up on is, like, you were talking about before you created or proposed to create GAM3 that started as Polkastarter Gaming, you noticed it was a gap in the market or a gap in the space that someone needed to fill, and you took it upon yourself to be the person that filled that role. So prior to how you actually got around to creating Polkastarter Gaming, which we will touch on because I think it's a hilarious story. What were you doing in the Web3 space? What kind of brought you in here, and then what were you participating in prior to initiating talks around setting something up to do with gaming?
Yeah, just like really casual, like crypto stuff. I mean, I was like on OpenSea, like anyone trying to mint NFTs. I was, I already had my Binance account set up, and I was trying to swap stuff and buy stuff. And, I think it's the baby steps are always like just like dipping your toes into the water and seeing what the industry's like, or what's in it, for you as a user. And then I think I quickly realized, and maybe this is something that a lot of people end up realizing, and maybe this is why people gravitate towards gaming. Like a lot of this stuff is maybe a bit over my own head, like in terms of like, I don't know, back when I got in, when it was just like still DeFi and that was the main focus, it was like, I don't want to sit and learn about lending and like DeFi product. Like I didn't have that within me to actually care. But what I did know was like video games. I knew what a good game looked like and what a bad game looked like. And so that was kind of a space and kind of a specific sector that I was like, maybe, if I know what good games are like, then maybe I should try to focus on investing in those games or buying those NFTs or focusing on those projects. I think at first, I mean, I was just like playing Thetan Arena back when it used to make you like $50 a day if you had the best NFTs. Like it was really trying to understand what was in the space. And I think I have a slightly different approach. I know a lot of people like care about ownership, and that's like their main thing about Web3. But for me, it was actually something that happened through esports, because setting up all these tournaments, especially in this region, I saw like 16-year-old kids that would win, 100K plus prize pools. and they would struggle to receive the money just because of how like centralized everything was and how banks work, and like, why is this Lebanese kid living in Egypt receiving 10, 20, 50 grand USD from a random bank all the way across, you know, the Gulf in Saudi or something. Like, there were always these issues, and like you'd see kids struggle. And I think that proposition of like crypto within gaming was very appealing to me. Now, asset ownership was a slightly different appeal, because I love, you know, trophy hunting on PlayStation. I've had my account since the PS3. I have so many different trophies, so many different platinums, etc. And I never have anything to show for it, right? Like when you screenshot like your achievements, sure, but like that always lives within the constraints of like PlayStation. I could never take that out and like go to maybe Steam and get like a discount or get early access or something. Like my PlayStation history, my Steam history, my League of Legends history are so disconnected from each other. And I think that was another appeal to me, like, you know, what the idea of being able to connect all of your different gaming profiles and have that live somewhere, that place being obviously the blockchain. So that was kind of my appeal at first. And yeah, like I said, I was just dipping my toes, and one thing really did lead to another. I didn't like, it wasn't one of those things where, you know, I made a official statement on LinkedIn, I'm now pivoting to Web3, please join me in my new, like, it was none of that stuff. It was literally just, you know, me reaching out to someone that knew more about the space, and me ending up here 3 years later.
Yeah, so like out of that, I like the idea of where you need to be able to get these funds to the people that win it without certain people questioning how they've got those funds as well. And then also your point around not liking DeFi but liking what initially started off as GameFi, right? I completely agree with that. I think it was the vehicle of what I could learn through was a lot easier for me to learn these principles if it was based around a game. They essentially could be the same principles as DeFi, but if you want me to sit down and read a wall of text, it's definitely not going to happen. But if I need to learn these principles and it's kind of interweaving within the gameplay of a game, it's kind of like a lot easier of a vehicle for me to then grasp and understand, oh, this is what you're actually meaning for us to do. So you said you reached out to someone. How did this reaching out go, and how did that end up with Polka Starter Gaming?
Yeah. So Mustafa, who's, you know, obviously currently still with us at Games GG, was one of like my, I wouldn't call him a university friend because we actually didn't talk that much back in university, but after we definitely did, especially on Twitter, and we did happen to work together on a few cases in esports in the region. Obviously, both of us being based here, but he was at the time working at, you know, like a launchpad / Web3 fundraising platform, and he kind of shared the idea about how these things work and how it's like Kickstarter, and you know, you can put money in and you get into a project early, and then that project launches their own token and their own economy, etc., etc. So the idea was really interesting to me, and I did join a couple of like IDOs, ICOs, whatever you want to call them. I found one particularly interesting platform, which was PokerStarter, and I found that they weren't really doing that many gaming launches. It was primarily like DeFi, like I said, and a couple of other like sectors. But I genuinely just reached out on LinkedIn to I think 2 or 3 people that worked at the organization. One of them being Daniel, obviously the CEO, and Joao, and a few other people. But basically, I just said, "Hey, love what you're doing. I think you should focus more on gaming though, because I believe that's where the first wave of mass adoption is going to come from. Best regards, Omar." You know, like it was a really simple, straightforward message. I didn't expect it to lead to anything, but then, you know, I got a response, and it was like one of those things where it was just, okay, let's get on a call and chat. So we did, and I think we just clicked on the call. So I had a call with Joao at the time, asked me a bunch of questions. What did I think about the space? Why do I think SLP price was tanking? And why did people believe that every game should be like Axie economy wise? Like all these different just random side conversations. And then, you know, the conclusion was, okay, would you be interested in joining us and maybe helping us build this thing that you're talking about? And I said, you know, sure, maybe. And it really was one of those like, can you start Monday things, you know? It was just like, okay, let's do it now. And at first, you know, in hindsight, actually reflecting back on it now, a lot of the stuff that we ended up evolving into was just us being agile and like willing to grow in whatever way the space wanted us to grow. Because at first, I mean, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, let's focus on education. Okay, what do users want? Users want access to these games. Okay, but all these games are gated behind NFTs. So maybe we should buy the NFTs and let the users, maybe rent them on our behalf. So that was kind of the almost guild model in a way. And then it evolved very quickly to like, okay, the games are now getting free. We don't need to do this anymore. Let's focus more on the education. So we did that. And it was like jumping back and forth between whatever the space wanted us to kind of evolve into until we found, you know, the one unifying factor, which was there was no go-to platform or venue where you could get all this information. So people would come to our Discord, but then they would miss our Twitter announcements, or people would, go to our Twitter, but they would miss the Discord game night where we did a giveaway. Like it was always very scattered, especially when we started doing Twitch, especially when we started doing YouTube. Like we were trying to be wherever gamers wanted us to be, but it was very overwhelming. Like you just couldn't keep up with us and you couldn't keep up with the entire space. So we said, what if we just, did a platform, set it up, gave people access to it, and everything they wanted would be there. So the new games that come out, us playing and reviewing these games, people streaming those games if people just want to watch, potentially giving prizes away and rewards, news on a daily basis. Like, what if we could just build that one thing where everyone could go and find that information? And that's, how the website came to be. And at first it was an experiment. I remember the first ever alpha version we actually built on WordPress. With like a bunch of plugins, and I think maybe we had like 7 to 10 games, and we were just trying to see, would people click on this, would people actually visit it? And when we got the traction initially that we wanted, that's when we doubled down and we said, okay, let's build a proper platform, let's have a good infrastructure that we can build on top of. So yeah, it was genuinely, I look at it, it feels like it's been way longer than 3 years, but it's it's been 3 years that kind of just zoomed past me, and the space has evolved so much that we're now like not even having the same conversations anymore. I remember I used to have to like talk a lot about what gaming was and Web3 gaming and so on. Today it's just one of those things where it's like, it's a Web3 game, it's building on Avalanche, it's got skins, and everyone like just picks up on these conversations. And we've moved from conversations around like, are the games fun, to what if a hacker exploits the game, right? Like the conversation narrative, the dynamic has completely shifted. So yeah, 3 years in crypto is like 30 years in the real world, and here we are today.
Yeah, so that's a good kind of recap of where games has started and where it's evolved to, right? And I kind of feel like if this platform had existed when we first started and it was to how it is now, but it existed 3 years prior, I think it wouldn't have done as well. I don't think people's comprehension or openness to be around this sort of stuff would have allowed the platform to grow and evolve the way it has. And I'd say one of the most prominent points coming out of our platform that people still struggle to find the name for, we get called a questing platform, we get called a guild, we get called all sorts of other things. But a lot of them then will mention we are the people that run the GAM Awards, right? So I'd say that is one of the biggest things that gets people's eyes for a specific event onto games itself. The platform all year round's got eyes on, but there's nothing as big as hosting an end of year awards. So the first year that you decided that we should do an award for games, how did that idea come about? And was it as well accepted or received as you thought it might be?
Yeah, it was frustration, really. I think I mentioned this briefly in my opening notes in the last awards in Manila, but yeah, I personally was very frustrated, and I think the team was as well, that we kind of knew things that were being built behind the scenes and the developments and the games and how good they were starting to get, but the outside world just didn't, and all the attention was kind of like on the same stuff. It was always on the scams, it was always on the copycats, it was always on, oh, Axie succeeded, but now these guys are trying to rip off their style and do the same thing and blah blah blah. And we wanted to just kind of bring a bit of positivity to the space, and more than anything, we just wanted to showcase like the best games that were being built and the things that you could look forward to. So the first year, yeah, it was tough. I think 2022, people didn't really believe in gaming as much as maybe they do now. We didn't have the whole Web3 gaming is inevitable shebang. So there was far less belief, and I think people were very skeptical of us. I remember going out into all these like random discords, and they would say, why would you do an awards for this? The games don't deserve any awards, they're not even finished yet, blah blah blah, which was true. And we weren't really like, I think what people forgot was like, we weren't delusional, right? Like we thought the same things you thought. It was just about, we need to get this started to make it a pattern, to make it a trend, to make it a habit of having a once per year event where we can showcase the best games. The end goal is for us to no longer need to do it, right? For these games to just be adopted into mainstream gaming, for these games to be picked up in, you know, the Game Awards with Geoff, and like it's like that is the end goal. But we're not there yet, right? And so it was about doing something now, doing something today, instead of waiting 3, 5, 7 years down the line. And it was the same with IGN. Like IGN was back in the day very skeptical and negative about Web3 gaming. Today they're starting to slowly open up. They're doing trailer releases for Off the Grid, a couple of other games. So it was just about doing it back then when no one wanted to do it. And I think the first year it was a learning, you know, experience more than anything. We did manage to get some, you know, good names. We got, you know, some great prizes. The games that won, I'd say most of them are still around, so that's a good sign usually. And then the second year, I think there was a bit more belief, but it was still skepticism. Like, are we in our own bubble, echo chamber? Like, we pretend this is a big game because all of us know about it, but we're so small compared to the wider market. And so it was a bit more about validation. So that's why we went after like the Xboxes and the Samsungs and Googles and Amazons. Like, we didn't have that the first year, but the second year, that was our thought process. It was like, let's get the outside to look at us and say, yes, these games are, you know, are deserving of your time, or whatever it is. And the third year, I think it was like, okay, we've now established this. People are used to it. People look forward to it. We have validation. The outside world is no longer just negative all the time. Let's just put on like a great show, right? Like, let's give it the stellar, you know, performance that it deserves. And that's why, you know, doing it as a live event, doing it with an orchestra, doing it with YGG in the Philippines, the heart of Web3 gaming, like all of these things kind of fell in place. So yeah, it's been a rough ride, I'd say, and there were definitely a lot more non-believers than believers early days, but I'm glad a lot of them came around. I mean, Peyton and a lot of the Wolves DAO people that I speak to as well were the people that were skeptical back in the day and are now like some of the biggest fans of the awards. And, you know, they fly out to the awards, they help co-host. So it's been, I think, great to see. And yeah, I can't wait for 2025, 6, 7, 8, you know, however many times we end up doing this, until it just becomes kind of, you know, not our job anymore, right? Like, I think that's when we realize we've won. Like, when these games are getting the appreciation that they deserve, I think we'll realize then, okay, we've won, like, we've done our job.
Yeah, when they start getting picked up in the traditional space within the traditional awards, and it's no longer only us handing things out, that's when I feel we've done our part, we've run our course, and we've helped shine the spotlight on a space that is still evolving and evolves massively quicker than everywhere else. And the idea around us having the first in real life one, where we were in YGG and we got to meet all the Filipino community that really do take part in these games, and there was just loads of them there ready to play everything. Do you think... Yeah, all the bots showing up in force, looking like people at the time. Do you think, I know from some of the stuff I've seen from you as well, there is in our space the idea that because we're a online based space, that most of the value comes from doing things online, because that's where our space is based. But with having the awards in person, and I know you still do some of this other outreach stuff that you do in person, where you go to these universities, you go to these schools, you tell them about what we're doing. Do you feel that anyone that believes because our space is online, we should stick to online stuff, they're really missing opportunities to bring in people that would adopt our space, but they need a person to identify or a thing to identify with in real life? Do you feel that having these real life events really does reach an audience that you're not going to if you're closed-minded about the fact that we're an online space, we should do things online?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's a Web3 thing, right? Like, everyone wants to be anonymous. Everyone wants to be just behind their phone screens and their PCs. And so maybe that's the more comfortable thing to do, right? I think people have to go out of their comfort zones to really do some of this physical stuff. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's about being where gamers want us to be honest. Like, it's never been about, I think Twitter is the best platform, or I think YouTube is, like, it's really just where are gamers looking for games. I mean, it's part of the reason why we focused on SEO for maybe most of the first and a half year of the website being up, because we knew people were more likely to Google like new game, new RPG, new Web3 game, what is Web3? Like, we knew that was going to happen a lot more often than like people on Twitter like finding out about games. Like, I reflect on it myself, and I don't think I've ever picked up a game because I saw a tweet about a game. Like I've never in my life saw a tweet say new game, download now, and went, oh my god, yes, I need to download. It's always been like my friend tells me about it, my favorite like streamer talks about it, a YouTube video pops up and shows me the trailer. Like it's always these things, or like I Google best 5 new games to try and I see it on the list somewhere. So we had to be there, right? And so I think a lot of the physical stuff is pretty much the same in the sense that you want to go to these schools or universities where people are still curious, where people are, interested in potentially experimenting and trying out. And you want to tell them like, hey, we welcome you. The space is open. You could just sign up now. Like I do this all the time. Whenever I do these physical events, I always say, and if you think what I'm talking about is complicated, just pull up your phone, go to games.gg, hit sign up, and log in with anything, like literally anything. You can log in with your Discord, with your Twitch, with your email, make a new account, like do whatever you want. And it's really that simple. And then, people start clicking around and they're like, hey, this is pretty neat. I can watch people live stream. Oh, this game looks like it could be fun. I think that's all it really takes. And people start like, I think the more and more we get advanced with AI and tech and ads and all this stuff, people start forgetting like the most powerful method of marketing really is word of mouth. In the end of the day, it's the highest value / return on your kind of investment in marketing. If people talk about your game or your platform or your brand, like that is really the most powerful way, because it comes from a trusted source. It doesn't come from you. It doesn't come from an ad. It doesn't come from a banner somewhere. It doesn't come from a cool video. It comes from like someone I trust. So when my friends downloaded Marvel Rivals because I said, trust me, it is fun.
Yeah.
It's not because they saw Superman or Spider-Man or whatever, like, right? It wasn't about the branding of the game or whatever, because there's so many stories of failures. There's so many, I have a shovelware collection on my Steam. Like there's so many games that I've downloaded and I've never played. But when a friend tells you, try this, let's play together, that's when it actually sticks. And so that's what we try to do in these in-person events. And I think what we did with Manila was really just more of that. It was like, yes, we do see you. We care about you. We know that you guys are there. Don't listen to the people calling you bots. Don't listen to the people calling you tier 3 gamers or whatever, names they slap on you as a label. We do see you, and we're here to, show face and say hi and network and, have fun. And I think we'll continue doing this. I mean, personally, for me, what would be great, and I've been talking to a few games like off the grid about this, is I'd love to bring some of these games to gaming cafes here in the region, because it's a very big culture here. Friends go together, like 5, 6, 7 friends at a time will go to a gaming cafe. They'll sit right next to each other and play Counter-Strike or whatever. What if you were like there that day and you had a tournament and you said, hey guys, you're good at shooters, why don't you try off the grid instead, and you can win like 1,000 dirhams. You don't even have to say dollars. You don't even have to say like fancy, like it could literally just be that, right? It could be like you all get a free lunch if you win, and it's enough to get that spark going and at least get them to give you feedback. Even if the game doesn't like stick, it'll be like, oh, I think it's cool but it needs optimizing, or oh, I think it's cool but I don't like the way the cursor looks or whatever. I think that's what we need to continue focusing on, because that's where gamers are. And I think for us, that's the ethos. Like we will always be where gamers. If gamers tomorrow are on a completely new platform, like I don't know, a Snapchat rebirth or something, like we'll be there, right? Like there's no bias. Like if gamers want us somewhere, we'll be there. But it's because it's our duty to educate. I feel like it's now become, with our platform and how much we've grown, I think it's become more of a responsibility than anything. Like we hold ourselves accountable to educate, rather than just like do it for fun. Like we're not doing this thing because it's so much fun, I can't wait to wake up tomorrow and write 5 news pieces about gaming. Like it's not that. It's really because, hey, we want people to be educated about this topic. We want people to have a good experience, because the worst thing that could happen is having a curious gamer that actually wants to learn, that actually wants to get into the space, and they get scammed. Yeah. Imagine, right? Like that used to happen so much back in 2021, 2022. Like they'll be curious, oh my God, this looks cool. I heard Axie worked out for people and they made money. Let me try it out. They put $100 in and they lose $100. Never look back. They will never come back to the space. And that will always be something they remember. Everyone remembers the first time they got scammed, or, that one time that they got rugged or drained or whatever. People don't forget that. It stays with them. And, we've just been trying to avoid that for the longest time ever. And, hopefully we'll continue doing that moving forward.
Yeah, I really do agree that having the in-person part really does help with the social proof, or the social trust is what I always call it. And the point around The delivery method of word of mouth doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what platform it is. If there's someone there that can listen to what you are saying, if you've managed to build trust up with that audience and deliver truthful information to them and not be one of these bad actors that's trying to scam them, I don't think it matters the delivery method. So the idea of being online because we're online rather than being offline and being in person, it doesn't matter. It's just a different vehicle for delivering the same message to some of these people. And thinking around the idea of, I don't know how to link this and it not sound negative, but thinking around the idea of scams and people having to buy into things. We at G3 now have NFTs and a token. When people are creating projects in this space, a lot of the questions they are asked straight away is either when token, when collection, anything like that that allows people from the outside to purchase in, to be almost considered on the inside or part of the team. When you're having to do the consideration about what order to do this in and what type of stuff to apply to the NFT, what type of stuff to apply to the token itself, how much do you think that factored into the amount of time games had existed prior to doing that, opposed to some that release it as one of their very first things on their roadmap?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think for me personally, I always believe it should be community, product, token, right? So the first thing is you build a community around something. For us, that was the idea of Web3 Gaming is fun and cool, and maybe we should pay more attention to it and play these games together and, you know, have fun with it. So that was what we did with our Discord, with our Twitter, etc., etc. And then product, the reason I say product second is I think you should cater the product to the community, right? You shouldn't try to force fit it. The people that try starting with a product and then bring a community in typically are force fitting the product, right? They're like, no, you will enjoy this. You will like this. We built it for you. Like, you will understand that this is what we're doing. 99% of the time, your best features, your best, you know, return on investment when it comes to like these resources will be actually like experimenting and testing and paying attention. Actually, I think more than anything, maybe my favorite thing to do to like kind of just unwind is to go to Discord and read through chats, like not even reply myself sometimes, but just read through chats and see what people are telling each other. Like, oh, this is cool, but I wish the team did blah, blah, blah. Or I really like this, but I think it would be better if blah, blah, blah. And I think that's where you really learn a lot. And so, you know, product was second, and that's what we did when we launched the platform. And then the reason I say third should be token. However, you know, you look at that if it's fungible or non-fungible, if you're talking about crypto or NFTs, is because I think you need the infrastructure or the justification behind launching that thing in question. So if it's like, we have a product and now we're going to gate a few features, and to get access, you need a token. Or we have a community and a product and everything is really cool, but now you want access to some things on that platform or some things. Like, even if you look at a game, for example, like you need a game that is fun enough for people to want to actually play and spend money on it. It doesn't make sense to release a trailer, release a token with a promise that you will then make a fun game that they can spend the token on. And that's what used to happen, right? Like 3 years ago, you would see a trailer, a token launch, and then the roadmap would be like 6 months later, we'll launch the game. And I think that's no longer the way to go. And I think our taste buds have improved, right? We've started moved on from cheeseburgers to sushi, right? Where it's like we start actually pushing back and saying, no, I'm not interested in this NFT collection, or I'm not interested in this token because I don't know what the game looks like, or there's no gameplay, or I haven't tried it, etc., etc. And that was never like a thing 3 years ago. So again, my biased opinion, I think that's typically the way it goes. Now, I know a lot of founders will tell you, especially with games, the worst thing that you could do is launch the game before the token, because there's a lot of speculation pre-game launch. So when you have these hype trailers and everything, and I think it's also true of like NFT projects, like whenever you have these like really big roadmaps and plans and so on, you let people imagine, and their imagination is always way, way bigger than your actual final delivery. So like you might say it's going to be an amazing MMORPG, and they will think like maybe World of Warcraft or something. They'll go super far. They'll go further than, you know, World of Warcraft. And then your game's like maybe 20% of World of Warcraft. And that immediately like shows in the numbers going down in Discord, the number of chatters going down, the token price going down, because you've now you've constrained their imagination to your actual execution. So I do see that. And I do think there's some validity to it. But I think as a builder in the space, you have to stay true to what you believe in And for me, that belief was like we needed the justification of the platform first before we launched anything. The NFT collection was, and again, going back to this, like last year, March, it was a free mint. No one had to pay anything for it. And it was a curated list of people that could mint it. It was only 333 people. You could mint if you basically filled out an application form. I think we had just over 18,000 people apply, and everyone was telling us all these really cool like gaming achievements. Because we said like, what is your best gaming achievement? What are you most proud of? And people were like, oh, I met my wife playing Call of Duty together. I was rank XYZ in this game. I won, this place in a tournament for Fortnite. And we had like some really cool esports players. We had some, people that are building in the space. We had some just casual gamers that said, my proudest achievement is that I won $50 in a game night and I beat everyone in, the Philippine server. Like it was a combination of these things, but it was really about just putting together people called it a Genesis collection, but it was really just putting together a smaller group of gamers that we could then laser focus on, kind of prioritize in terms of like feedback, focus studies, et cetera, et cetera. And that's really what I do. Like most of the time you'll see now in Discord, I spend most of my time in the lobby chat. That's where I talk to people the most, because general chat will have random people come and go and ask like random stupid questions. But lobby chat is typically like, okay, this person has either minted a year ago and is still around, or has bought in with some level of conviction because it's now, I don't know, 0.2, 0.3, 0.5 ETH, whatever they bought in at. Therefore, this person is probably more likely to be invested in our success because it also means their success, right? So that was the NFT collection. Now, the token was people to have more access to all of these cool things and, the ability to trade assets and buy into stuff like the Battle Pass, et cetera, et cetera. Let's create an economy around the infrastructure we've already built. So we have a platform that has, and a lot of the features are being slowly turned on now, and I think people are starting to realize it as time passes, but we have cloud gaming on the platform, we have a battle pass on the platform, we have quests on the platform. You can essentially buy or trade or mint any NFT on Magic Eden, so you could foresee that potentially there's going to be some similar ability to do that on the platform. Like all of these things that are being done on the platform, we just created the V-Bucks of Games.gg. It was just, okay, here is the currency that Games.gg runs on. And we gave a lot of it away early days, right? Like I think if you reflect back and you look now, actually over the course of, we TGE'd back in April last year. So when we launched G3, we did 100% unlock day one airdrop that didn't have a put G3 in your username requirement, didn't have a follow the founder requirement. It was just like, thank you for being part of this. This is your rank after however long time you spent with us. You also minted the NFT collection, so here's an extra. You're also part of a partner community, so here's a little extra. We literally just gave a bunch of it away. I think it was like worth $3 million or something at the time that we just completely gave away to users. And we'll continue to do that because we have still more airdrops, and there's like a whole chunk that just in the tokenomics is focused on community. Because for us, it's about getting G3 in the hands of as many gamers as possible so that they can be part of this ecosystem that we built. Like I want the average Joe sitting in a gaming cafe to have some G3 in a wallet where they can then do something with it. I don't care what they do. I don't care if they buy the battle pass on the platform. I don't care if they swap it out to ETH and go and buy a shitty NFT off the floor somewhere. Like, I don't care what they do. As long as they become part of our ecosystem, they are now part of Web3. And then that's our job done. Because like if we're trying to onboard users and onboard gamers into Web3, like this is the simplest way we could do it. Like, hey, you set up an account, here's a dollar, right? Like go spend it. Spend it on what? I don't know. We'll figure it out together. You could do this, you could do this, you could do that. So yeah, that's my belief. Again, you don't have to agree with me, and a lot of people don't agree with me. But that's a lot more speculation focused, I think. When you say like don't do the product first, it's the worst thing that you could do. You'll kill the token performance, etc., etc. But it's really just there are two products, right? Like your token is a product on its own, your economy is a product on its own, and then your actual game or your actual platform is a product on its own. And you have to treat both with equal respect because you cannot double down only on the token and neglect your platform or game, but you also cannot double down only on the platform and game and neglect your token because someone is getting burnt in both scenarios. And I don't think you'll ever manage to make everyone happy, but you just have to do what feels right to you, that you could just, go to sleep at night and not have nightmares about, oh, I just, bankrupt a bunch of people, or, oh, I just completely disappointed all my gamers that have been in the Discord for years and years and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's a very complicated question. And I think you might get different answers from different people, but for me, that's what I believe.
Yeah, I think the idea around speculation and how much you're willing to allow others to speculate will always come into play when people are releasing their product or doing their TG itself. It kind of feels like if you are releasing your token because you know it's the best opportunity to get the most speculation because people don't know the product you're pushing out, you really need to ask yourself, how okay are you with letting people not manage their own expectations to the point that they might speculate too much, which will
Yep.
fund you through your token, but can you accept that as a person? And I think that's really what is going to change people's answers to the same question, is how much they can disregard the possibility that they're letting people overinvest and over speculate in something because they haven't had their product yet, and you're allowing someone's imagination to create the world's most beautiful game as you then pass them snake
Yeah.
because you've allowed that out.
I think yeah, it comes back to haunt you as well, because if you've built that up for such a long time, if people have these like expectations, and if you've never actually explicitly told them, okay guys, chill, like we're only going this far, or like it's gonna take us 7 years to finish, or what, like if you don't actually do that, then you're wrong, right? When they come to your Discord and they're raging and they're angry and they're like, you promised this and this and that, like technically you're wrong. And I see a lot of founders try to like, backtrack a little bit and say, we never promised blah 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 blah. It's like, yeah, but you never, like you didn't also not promise it, right? Like you said it's gonna be amazing, everything is gonna lead to this, and I'm so excited to do this, and then like you just delivered nothing. And we've seen it with games and teams that have like chosen to go back to Web 2 because Web 3 isn't like full of players that actually want to play the games. And this is after launching NFTs and making tons of money, and misleading the space and going on and being on Twitter Spaces and blah 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 and championing the industry. And then like suddenly you just flip a switch and you're like, wait a minute, like we never promised any of this. We just said like we'll do something, but we never said what we will do. And then I think it just there's too much sour taste in. I think if you've been in the space for, I even want to say 1 year, but if you've been in the space for like 2+ years, you've seen enough that you're now, I would say, like a seasoned Web3 gaming veteran, right? Like you've seen rugs, you've seen pivots, you've seen disappointing TGEs because the team wasn't fully aware of what that meant to launch a token. Like you've seen all these things that you've now become like immune, right? Like I could not care less. Like at this point, I mint NFTs and I'm considering all of them going to zero. Like immediately, I buy tokens and I'm like, I'm probably losing half, if not most of my money. Like this becomes your attitude. But the new people coming in are just, they're having their you moment like a year or 2 years later. Like they're now realizing, wait a minute, like I was promised this, why am I not getting it? And I want that sour taste to actually go away. And so, yeah, I would personally invite more teams to like try to manage expectations a little bit better. I think the best thing you could do is over communicate, and the worst thing you could do is not communicate enough. Like teams that decide to TGE or launch a token or NFT collection, whatever, and then like go silent on Discord or announce nothing for like 9 hours on Twitter, whatever it is. Like that's the worst thing that you could do, because that same imagination that you were like brewing up in people's minds about how good it was going to be is now brewing up the same thing, but like on the flip side, it's like, oh, they stole the money, they're running away, they're like, rugging us, and that couldn't be like, it's probably not true, but you're not saying anything, and so that's the immediate assumption. I think we were lucky though, because I think we had 2 years plus of a community that already knew us. Like I remember, this is so funny to me, but I remember when we launched G3, like I would go to Discord and I would see people like, oh, I've been in this community for like months and months, and all I got was 10 tokens. I hate this. You guys are scammers, blah blah. And like one of our community members would like search up the user on Discord, be like, brother, you joined 3 weeks ago. You have 2 messages. You haven't been part of this community. This is why you only got this much. I've been part of this community for a while. I'm very happy with what I got. And I think that's what everyone should strive to do. I'm not saying we're perfect, but I think if you strive to do that, if you have champions within your own community that are then like going to defend you, you don't really need to do much talking. Like you just have to show up and say, hey guys, this is the plan. This is how we're going to execute. But your actual community will do the talking on your behalf.
Yeah, I think that's the benefit of being as clear and concise when you're communicating what you're going to do with these people, not only in helping them manage their own expectations, but also covering yourself from people that might be coming in and trying to play off as if they've been with you longer than it was before. Actually, your story reminds me of the time when I was asked if I'm allowed to speak to someone in the community like that because I'm only a mod. And someone else jumped in and pointed out, if you believe George is just a mod here, then you clearly have not been in this community long
Yeah.
enough to recognize someone that does most of the face work for the whole project.
You know, I used to get talked to in like tickets as if, you know, I'm like a new beer, and it's like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like, give me someone else. Like, brother, like,
It's my
who else do you want
company.
I don't understand. Like, you've talked to everyone in the organization all the way to the top. Like, there's no manager above Karen. Like, relax, you know. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I think it's a learning process. The space is so new that there's no blueprint really. Like, things that worked out months, years, sometimes even weeks ago might not work out anymore. So yeah, to each their own, I
constantly
guess.
constantly evolving and constantly keeping that kind of speculation alive. And with the idea of speculation, currently people are all thinking around stuff that is to do with AI and AI agents. And I'm going to ask you this as kind of like two questions, but in one question, because I think it kind of leads together of what do you think is coming for 2025? And I'm going to include in that, how big a part do you think the current trend of AI agents is going to play in 2025? Or do you see them being hot now and then something else coming later just due to how quickly our space moves?
So I think memes are a culture trend. I think memes are hot when there's a reason for them to be hot, whether that's because the market is depressed and it needs a way to make money and feel something again. And that's when you get the moodangs and, you know, whatever meme coin. Like, at some point it was, and then you look within meme coins and it's like, at some point it was animals that were cute, and then animals that were dying, and then it was like AI, you know, bots or AI focused stuff, and then it went back to animals a little bit when someone shot a squirrel. Like, that's where it's like ebbs and flows. But I think memes are here to stay, in the sense of like, we will always enjoy memes. There will always be some money to be made on memes, and I think that stays around, right? I think AI is similar in the sense that AI is here to stay, and it's probably going to change the future of everything, not just of, you know, gaming or crypto. It is just what within AI that will stick around the longest. I think right now AI agents is a hot topic because it's easier to do. I think people hold on to narratives. It's like, oh, Virtuals is doing this, but like, did you know that Eliza AI16Z is doing that instead? And like, after AI16Z, there's like Pippin, and then like after Pippin, like, people always try to hold on to, and it's like, oh, this guy used to work at Nvidia, this guy sold his company to Google, this guy, and I think that's what the market is trying to do at the moment. But at some point, we will reach that kind of, you know, pivotal point where, okay, AI is here to stay. It's just what within AI. So it might not be AI agents anymore. It might be X, or it might be Y, or blah, blah, blah. And I think seeing people like the CEO of NVIDIA come out and talk about AI agents and the future of it, and how it's going to be a huge market in the future, gives me more conviction in the fact that it is here to stay. I think your touch point with AI just really depends on what you are trying to achieve with it. So I do find that it's quite natural to us, just because it's a platform, right? Like, we're not a game. So even when I saw resistance at first to the idea of it, I was a bit like confused, because I was like, well, you know, people call it a super app. We do cloud gaming quests and news. Like, at what point do you then see AI not fitting into some piece of that equation? Because for me, it's a couple of things, and I think we released the AI roadmap just to give a bit more clarity about what we're trying to do with it. But basically, the AI agent thing was like step one. It was the experiment of like, okay, let's bring life to this thing that could then just talk about Web3 gaming on our behalf, or for us, or answer questions or whatever. That's like such a tiny piece of the puzzle. Like, it's so easy to make an AI agent now that anyone can do it, and there's no differentiation between it. And, you know, you look at like Yellow Panther and Geo and all these people that are now launching their own agents. I saw Kagi say he's going to launch one as well. Like, it's because it's so easy to do it. But then the question becomes, okay, how are you different, or what are you doing with it that's actually innovative, or whatever? And I think that's where the rest of the roadmap comes in, because we have a platform that has over 1 million users and 500 plus games and so on and so forth. There's so much information that at some point you need someone to maybe guide you through it.
Mm.
And for us, like our idea is for this, AI to almost be like a co-pilot. So you go through the platform, you're clicking around, maybe you like something and you're like, oh, are there any other similar games to this? Or, oh, how do I get started with this? Or, is there a way for me to actually get access to this game? And instead of going to our Discord and asking someone and, maybe spending more time searching or clicking around, maybe you just click on a widget, it pops up, you say, hey, I want to learn more about this, you get an answer, it's done for you, right? I keep saying Clippy 2.0. Clippy was very invasive and annoying back in the days because it would always pop up and it would always force you to like, read and whatever. But I think along the same lines of like being able to see a new feature or spotting a new trend or identifying that there are similar games to the game that you like or enjoy, like that's what our AI agent is going to hopefully fill the role of. And then there's like other, you know, instances where it goes an extra level higher, like being able to see your gameplay. Like if you're playing, let's say, Pixels on our platform using the Play Now functionality, since it's a browser game, what if the agent could like see your screen and say, hey, you're low on energy, or hey, you should go here because there's an event or whatever. Like I think that actually adds more value than it like takes away, because people have this like misconception that if you announce something about AI that you're like pivoting away from gaming or you're pivoting away from whatever you're doing. It's like, no, this is an extra layer that's complementary on top. And I think it gives you more exposure to avenues that maybe you couldn't have, I'd say tap into previously, whether that's like new attention, extra eyeballs, a different, table to sit on when it comes to these conversations. So I think, yeah, for us, it's here to stay. And the ultimate goal is to actually, and this is why I say I'm a bit puzzled by it, because the ultimate goal is to empower gamers to have that same access to use AI. Like we're not trying to build something that's cool to us that we just laugh at the tweets it pushes out. It's like we're trying to give you access to this in the best way possible. And so I'd say like it's not the final level, but the kind of ultimate goal that we're trying to reach is like you being able to use our AI tech to potentially launch your own games. Right? Like it probably starts with being able to just prompt an AI and say, hey, I want to make, I don't know, Tetris,
Flappy
but
Bird.
yeah, Flappy Bird or Tetris with G3 branding, or Pac-Man, whatever it is. Like maybe it just starts as that, but giving you the ability to then become a game developer, almost, right? Like have a game studio in your pocket because you're just chatting to this AI agent, or even letting you launch your own AI agents and having them as NPCs in your game as a developer. So maybe you don't want to spend money or resources or time building all these different NPCs that have their own personalities, blah blah blah. But like maybe you come to us and you launch them through us. So I think, yeah, it's here to stay. In what capacity, I don't know. I do think the AI agent narrative is not going away anytime soon. I think token prices are down and people are a little bit depressed right now, but depends on when you're watching this. But yeah, I think it'll be similar to memes in the sense that it will become like almost a vertical within crypto. Like, and I think it already has, to be honest, because it's eaten up mindshare from everything else, from every other sector. But it will just become a vertical, and then you'll have innovation within the vertical. You'll have like people that are launching AI agents, people that are launching games using AI, people that are launching like companion apps, etc., etc. And at some point, it'll just become a norm again. We're not an AI company. We will never be an AI company. Like we're not competing with the AI companies out there. We're leveraging AI tech to continue doing what we do best, which is gaming. Like we are just adding a layer on top. The website still has more games going out every day. The news we push out is still about video games. We still have more Play Now functionalities. We literally are wrapping up season 1 of the Battle Pass and we're going into season 2. Like everything we're doing is still gaming focused. That focus doesn't go away. It's just there's now an extra layer that could potentially help you as a user, as a person that uses games.gg, get more out of your experience in Web3 gaming. That's as simple as it can be in my perspective. But yeah, I mean, I understand the pushback and people wanting you to like stick to a certain narrative or focus only on this. I don't want you to LARP about that, blah, 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 which, I respect. But in the end of the day, I think if we got into crypto, it's because we had that appetite for risk and the ability to be agile and move quickly and adapt. And I think it just makes zero sense to then look at something that is so obvious to you is going to have some weight in this industry and be like, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to focus only on that. It's like you got into the space because of that same curiosity. It feels right to just keep feeding it more and more. As long as you're not going like off on complete tangents that make no sense. Right?
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. And I think for platforms And even with games as well, because games have so much information behind them. Like you could go into Path of Exile and open the skill tree right now, and you would have no idea what you're looking at. And I think the idea of people shunning AI away from platforms, games, projects, they're just kind of missing the opportunity to see that AI can just be another vehicle for passage of information instead of having to have a big long paragraph someone needs to read. If there is an AI that you can just ask the question to, that's the most basic function from these language models is you ask it a question, it gives you the answer. I don't see why people could be so bothered unless you are fully pivoting all of your resources away from what your initial product was to just do this AI. I could see an issue with that. But if the AI is there just as an easier way for people to learn about what you already have, I don't see why anyone would ever be against that, regardless of if our AI moves to the point that you mentioned where it's helping people develop a game and stuff far more superior to what I'm thinking of. At the basic level, another person you can ask a question to that can give you a more detailed answer and a quicker answer than you waiting on a real human. I don't see why anyone could be against that personally.
Yeah. I mean, you played League of Legends for a while, right? Like you remember the good old days when you had to like actually read through builds and Reddit forums and like people trying to explain like this is how you pick against LeBlanc or whatever. And like today, you just literally there's Blitz GG, there's like all these AI helper. Like there's one after Tyler one that basically has his voice and tells you the jungler's gonna gank you, you should back up. Like I think it is going to be something integrated deeply and like just integrated seamlessly within gaming that will free up your time to do other stuff. I wish I didn't have to do all that research back in the day, but I had to. Today, it's like so much easier because I can just click a few buttons and I know exactly what to build against this exact champion. I know when to back, I know when to buy an item, I know when to go Drake. Like all these things just become so much easier. And I think that's what AI will do. It'll just open up the door for you to focus on getting better mechanically at the champion or, you know, improving your strategy or whatever it is that you need to work on. But you don't have to consume that content the same way anymore. You don't have to have that information overload where it's like, oh, but George thinks this is the best build, but like that person thinks this is the best build. It's like, no, everything is like, you know, catered to you and the AI agent knows how you play and your style and maybe it learns and adapts from you. And I think that's the ultimate goal, like being able to do that across every game with AI should be something that I think people get excited about, not, you know, get paranoid about. But yeah.
So, Omar, final question. Which game had you played to the most, and do you regret that number?
Oof. It's tricky. I think I've had phases in life. I wouldn't be able to put a specific number, but I do want to say because I've played it since 2000 and must be 4, it probably has to be FIFA, realistically. I was gonna say League, but that consumed most of my like high school, university years. But I feel like FIFA, I probably put in the most hours because I've just played every FIFA ever since. And do I regret it? I think up to 2014, I probably did not regret it. I think ever since, I probably do. And it, you know, it actually feeds into this whole Web3 angle because EA is notorious for milking the franchise and making you spend more and more money and just giving you absolutely nothing to show for it in the new installation the year after. So yeah, I probably do regret it a little bit. Maybe not because I had fun with it growing up, but yeah, I definitely regret the hours. Could have put it into something a bit more productive, like, you know, Web3 gaming. But yeah, it's
Well,
it's shambolic. I think you wouldn't want to see the number of hours I have in all the FIFAs across the board.
okay, well, that's a fantastic answer, and it's been great to have you here today as well, Omar. Everybody watching this down the line, make sure you go and check it out on YouTube, Spotify, and all our usual podcast locations as well that you previously were enjoying Press Play on. If you have any recommendations of people you think we should be bringing on as well, make sure to drop that in as well. And if you need to learn more about Web3 gaming, probably should head over to games.dg. And I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.